For many of you who have been following me know that on January 18th of 2017, I lost my only grandpa to lung cancer. It was a short stint from diagnosis to death, but a painful one, and all of us in the family are relieved that he is no longer in any pain or discomfort. Then again, knowing him, I might have spoken too soon. Let me give you an example of what kind of man my grandpa was. When he was young, he was such a troublemaker that he was given a choice: prison or the military. Luckily for him, he never saw the inside of a jail cell. Unlucky for him, he had to experience World War II. Now, he never talked that much about his stint in the war, but from what he did tell us, I've put together that he was stationed in Japan right after they dropped the bomb on cleanup duty. An experience that would humble the hardest man, but when he returned, he decided to make the most of his life. Got married, became a truck driver, had my mom, got divorced, got remarried, became a grandfather, and eventually a great-grandfather. I have many fond memories of my grandpa, from Christmases at his house to him teaching me how to play poker. I have no bad memories, and I'm very thankful for that. But my favorite memory of the man was one I wasn't even present for. My family owns season tickets to the mighty Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, home of the Green Bay Packers. It has been claimed to be the absolute best stadium to watch a football game simply because of its simple, bold design. There are no poles, no struts, no obstructions from any seat in the house, and the fact that there is no roof adds to the greatness that many NFL fanatics call the Shrine. We've had season tickets ever since the Packers started playing some of their regular season games at Milwaukee County Stadium, an arena that no longer exists, having been torn down to make room for the Brewers' current home, Miller Park. For one preseason and 3 regular season games, we had the luxury of being able to watch Don Majkowski fail, get injured, and bring on the great Brett Favre all the way up in the nosebleed section. But only after a few years, head coach Mike Holmgren pulled the Packers out of Milwaukee and back into Green Bay full-time. The Milwaukee fans were crushed, but the Green Bay organization thought that such a large market shouldn't be screwed over. So we were offered to keep our season tickets with the introduction of the green and gold packages. The gold package for the Milwaukee fans and the green package for the original Green Bay fans. It was a win-win, and everyone got to see their beloved Packers trounce the Bears over and over and over and over and over and over. My grandpa hails from Massillon, Ohio, a city not known for much except for their high school football team, the Massillon Tigers. The big game every year is when the Tigers play the Bulldogs from Canton, and every football fan knows what else is in Canton, Ohio: the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Even though the Browns and the Bengals aren't the greatest teams in the NFL, Ohio is most definitely the Mecca for football. My grandpa was a huge football fan, and he taught his only daughter, my mom, to be a football fan as well. And when my mom met my dad, a huge Packers fan, that's just a recipe for 2 huge football fan kids, my brother and I. Every time I would talk to my grandpa, we would always end up talking about how well the Packers were doing and how poorly the Browns were doing and how much of an antichrist Art Modell was. Bit of trivia. Art Modell was the original owner of the Browns and suddenly just uprooted the team and moved them to Baltimore, thus birthing the Ravens. So everyone in Ohio hates Art Modell for removing football from Ohio. A few years back, my grandpa was about 83, 84 at the time. A situation arose and we had a game available where my brother was not going to be able to use his ticket, so we invited my grandpa to take his place. I had never heard or seen such an excited old man in my life. He was as giddy as a schoolboy when he found out he was going to get the chance to see a game from inside Lambeau Field. We planned out the weekend. Grandpa would drive up from Massillon to Milwaukee, and then we would all drive up to my folks' lake house, now their only house since they retired and moved up there permanently. And on Sunday morning, we would drive the extra hour to Green Bay and watch the Packers hopefully destroy the Cowboys, a team which every decent Packer fan hates. But the NFL had different plans. They decided to change the time of the game from 12 noon to 7:30 p.m. Since this was a gold package game, thousands of Milwaukee fans were irate with the fact that they now had to go up to Green Bay in the late afternoon, watch the game, and start heading back to Milwaukee about 11 p.m. at night, finally arriving back in Milwaukee about 1 or 2 a.m., then getting up on Monday morning in a few hours for work. Many fans put their tickets up for grabs on eBay and Craigslist since they just couldn't justify the travel time. And because those tickets were now available for sale, they were immediately bought up by Dallas Cowboy fans. What you have to know about Lambeau Field tickets is that you cannot just buy general admission. At this present time, you could only be put on a waiting list. You would not see them. Your children would not see them. Your grandchildren might see them. That's how long the waiting list is. And suddenly, thousands of tickets just spring up. Of course anyone and their mother is going to buy them up. Just the wrong people bought them. Cowboy fans. There's always a debate about who has the worst fans. Some people say it's Chicago. Not true. When the Bears play the Packers, there is a historical respect between the NFL's greatest rivalry. Some people say it's Minnesota, only when they blow that goddamn horn. Some people say it's New York or Detroit or even Oakland. No. The worst of all time, Dallas Cowboy fans. Why? Well, my opinion is this. You couldn't find a Cowboy fan before the mid-90s, and suddenly, Troy Aikman comes onto the scene and they go to Super Bowl after Super Bowl, and suddenly, they all crawl out of the woodwork and claim they've loved the Cowboys all their lives. Bullshit! You just want to root for a winner. And as soon as that era ended, they all fell silent again and crawled back into their trailers and ranches. They only come out when the Cowboys are doing good. Never when they suck. And that's not a true fan. You gotta love your team no matter what. You picked your pony, now you gotta ride that son of a bitch till it's dead. Never in a million years would I think I would have seen the sight of Lambeau Field, home of the Green Bay Packers, housing more Cowboy fans than Packer fans. It was a scene out of the Book of Revelations. It was horrifying. It made my stomach turn. My mom was not pleased. My dad really didn't care. My grandpa was just happy to be there. And that's what mattered. I wanted my grandpa to have the best Lambeau experience possible. Lord knows if he would ever get the chance again. We fought through the throng of blue and silver just to get to our seats, and it was clear that these bandwagoners were not here for the game, but just to say they've been in Lambeau, and that just added to our misery. We got our seats, unfolded our padded chairs, and took in the landscape. What should have been a sea of green and gold was deep blue with spatterings of silver, a shitload of 33s and 8s aimlessly wandering. The game started soon after and was relatively uneventful, except I believe he was 2 rows in front of us. A Kool-Aid-sized man sporting a jersey that was 1X too small. A Dallas fan who had taken part of our fine barley and hops heritage and added several rings of sausage and nachos and pizzas and pretzels to his girth. You could hear his skin stretching as he continued to balloon. His hair was unkempt. His face was greasy and unshaven. He was the true face of every Dallas Cowboy fan I had ever hated, and I instantly detested this man. Not because of his appearance, no. That was just the cherry on this fat faggot sundae. Every time the Cowboys did something right, whether it was a first down, or a field goal, or a tackle, or a 2-yard run, or a 3-yard run, or a 1-yard screen pass, he would jump up and wobble out of his seat and chant in the oiliest, chunkiest voice I had ever heard, "Cowboys are number 1! Woo!" Every time the offense or defense did something positive, no matter how small or insignificant, Cowboys are #1! Woo! He was relentless. Tony Romo completed a pass for 3 feet. Cowboys are #1! Woo! Packers' pass was incomplete. Cowboys are #1! Woo! Cowboys take their final time out of the half. Cowboys are #1! Woo! Everyone in the entire section wanted to skewer him like the fat pig that he was and turn him over to the Using Your Sausage Factory. Halftime came and went, and the Packers were down. I can't remember the score because the score wasn't the important detail in the story. It was mid-third quarter, and I had had enough. The Texas Michelin Man, as I now referred to him, was getting worse and worse the greater Dallas's lead got, and I needed a goddamn beer. I remember seeing a Guinness stand on our way up to our seats when we arrived, so I told my mom and my dad and my grandpa that I was going to get a beer and I'll be back. At that time, the remaining Packer fans were quite humbled and sat in silence, while the fix of normal Dallas fans were all cajoling with camaraderie and general pleasantness. And as I left the stands and went into the concourse, I heard that fucker one more time. Cowboys are #1! Woo! It took me 30 minutes to go down all the ramps, find the Guinness stand, stand in line, get my beer, head back up, and return to my seat. When I did return, the atmosphere was much different than before. Not just the Packer fans, but everyone, even the fat fuck, was as silent as a grave. I got in my seat and took notice of my family's expressions. My mother was annoyed. My father was embarrassed. My grandpa was 3 shades of red and still breathing heavily and staring daggers at the back of the head of Mr. Hot Air Balloon. What the hell happened? I asked my mom. Not now, sweetie. Not now, she replied. My mind tried to figure out by the visual clues what possibly could have happened, but there wasn't enough evidence to paint a clear picture. The Packers ended up losing the game, and as we were packing up all of our belongings, the fat Dallas fan approaches my grandpa, offers a handshake, and in a calm and respectful voice says, "I'm really sorry. I hope I didn't ruin this for you." All my grandpa did was wave him off, not wanting to have anything to do with him, and continued up the stairs to leave the stadium. "Okay, what the hell happened?" I shouted. "Not now," my mom shouted back. We exit the stadium and walk back to our car, parked in a church lot about a quarter-mile away. I signal my mom to hang back and let my dad and my grandpa walk up ahead. "Okay, what happened?" I asked once more. My mom sighed. "Your grandfather almost killed that fat guy in front of us," she said disapprovingly. "Wait, what?" Apparently, I wasn't the only one that had it with that asshat. After I left to go get my beer, the guy continued his constant routine of standing up and shouting, "Cowboys are #1! Woo!" Well, my grandpa had it and yelled back at the guy. The guy then apparently threatened my grandpa. Bad move, Turd Ferguson. This man has seen more hell on earth than you would ever see in a rousing game of World of Warcraft. You do not fuck with my grandpa. He will fuck you up no matter how old he may be. My grandpa attempted to vault himself over the bleachers at this guy, and it took my mom, my dad, and several others to hold him back from killing this guy, the entire time shouting expletives at him that would make the most vulgar man's toes curl. The fat man looked genuinely scared and immediately backed down, knowing full well that the man he just pissed off was the absolute worst person he could have picked a fight with. He most likely thought, this is probably a guy who knows how to kill someone in 200 different ways. I bet he knows where Jimmy Hoffa is buried. The man immediately backed down. My grandpa was calmed down, and everyone tried to make sense of what just happened. Then I returned with a pint of Guinness. Are you fucking kidding me? I missed that? I wasn't very quiet about it. My grandpa stopped walking, dropped his head, and turned back to look at my mother and me. Doc, you just tell him what happened in there. My grandpa always called my mom Doc on account of her love for Bugs Bunny. My mom nodded. My grandpa leaned in close, and with a twinkle in his eye and a great shit-eating grin beaming on his face. Fucker got off easy, too.